Hello! Today we'll be taking a look at this RunCam camera, but just before we get into it, a quick reminder to please like or dislike this video if you don't like it, comment down below, don't forget to subscribe and click on the little bell if you want to get updated when I release videos. So what have we got here? Well, I got 4 cameras through at once to review, which is quite hard unless you can fit 4 cameras to a quad at once, which I can't. I prefer to concentrate on each one. So I put a poll out there to you good people at YouTube and said, which one would you like to see the most? And the runaway winner of that one was this. This is the RunCam Phoenix Oscar edition. It is named so because it was developed in association with Oscar Lan, who I'm sure you know runs a fantastic blog, has YouTube videos but never says anything, but a really good reviewer and good at the tech stuff. And so he went together with RunCam and basically asked them to do a bunch of stuff, and they did it. Why is no one asking for the Curry Kitten edition? Maybe because I don't know what I'm doing, and Oscar does, I guess. But anyway, this is what's in the box, so let's take a look at it. Get the camera itself. It's a kind of micro style camera with an M12 lens, so a nice big lens there, which tends, people have sort of gone to these bigger lenses because they tend to give a better picture. It has got a myriad. I'm going to do the over the glasses look. 5 to 36 volts, it's got a separate VBAT plus, and then it's got an OSD connection which can also be connected to a UART for camera control, which is quite interesting. We'll take a close-up look at this soon. Elsewhere in the box you get this little bag. Not a great deal of stuff in here actually. You get this cable which will plug in, and it's got nice flexible silicone wires. You get this mount. This is quite handy because this is a micro style size, so if it's going in a small quad you've got the holes to go in directly. But if not, you've got this, and once you install it in here, this goes onto a sort of more traditional larger frame and you can screw in there, which is quite nice. And then you've just got a bunch of screws. So this is listed as having a WDR sensor. I think in real terms that's a CMOS sensor which has WDR, because you can flick it from 16.9 to 4.3 and it does PAL and NTSC. The fact it's got a VBAT on there also means it supports an OSD on the menu which displays the voltage and potentially other stuff. Designed especially for daytime flying, so it's not got any nighttime flying capabilities, and I generally fly at day, so hopefully it should be good. So yeah, let's have a close-up look. Let's see how the little bits work, and we'll go from there. So here's the close-up of the back of the camera, and as I mentioned there, you've got the voltage input, the ground, video, a separate VBAT plus, so you can either take what's coming in there, or if you attach that one it will be separate. Then you've got the ground and menu for using your sort of menu control to do stuff, although they, as I said, they don't supply it, or that doubles up as a TX-RX to connect to a UART for camera control. So I just wanted to plug this in to see what we get first off. You can see my quad here looks like it's been attacked by a shark and ripped apart. So let's hook this up to it, since we've got it all down like this, and we'll go from there. So all I've done here is I've plugged in my existing connection. I've just sort of piggybacked an existing RunCam camera thing I had there, so I wanted to plug in and see what we got. Now what I'm going to do is just turn my OSD off, and you'll see in the corner there it lit up and saying Joystick Control, which means I can actually use the joystick to go through it. And you can see there we've got a whole bunch of things, exposure control, white balance, day-night setting, the image enhancement. There's quite a lot in it, quite a bit more than normal. The video setting, this lets you go from PAL to NTSC, an image ratio. I might change that to 16.9 for my goggles. I don't know if you'll see anything different from it. The language, and that's about it. You've also got, and you see it say joystick control there, if you hold upwards then it go into the OSD settings, so you can change the name there. You'll see we've got pilot, timer and voltage on at the moment, which shows down there at the bottom. Obviously we're just connecting via the 5 volt out, so we're getting a 5 volt through. But rather than change this here, what I'd quite like to do is try this camera control thing. And this is, as you might have guessed, why I've got the top of this thing. What I've got at the moment, this is an omnibus, I'm going to call it an omnibus type board. I'm not sure if it's the original or what. It's always so hard to tell these days. But what I've got here is these are two UARTs. This is UART 6 and 3, and in TX6 is I've got smart audio going to my VTX over here, and I've just basically cobbled a connector that doesn't fit, and I've cut the other things off. And what I want to do is just use the rest of the pins, because there's two right at the start here which are RX6 and TX6, and if I connect it up to here, then I should be able to get camera control. But one thing I need to do before then is change it over to actually use UART control, and to do that you have to short the connection between these two bits here. So all I've got is the little cable I'm going to use to do it, and I've just twisted the wire together. In a normal quad I would have used that enclosed cable they give me, so it would have fit nicely, but as I keep swapping cameras out in this one, it's quite nice to keep the original. But anyway, I've got this twisted together, and so all I should need to do is connect the battery and it should move over to UART control. So yep, seems to say UART control there. So if I unplug, now take that out, plug it in again just to check it. Yep, it says UART control, which is what I was after. So my next task now is to take this cable and connect it to this cable, which is going to go into there because I don't have one with 6 connectors, and also get something. This is a 4 connector, so I'm going to have 2 2s going in there, one of which is going to take smart audio, the other which is going to take camera control, and that's going to sort of stuff in together. Fingers crossed, we hope. So I'll wire that up and then we'll take another look, see if it's looking a little bit cleaner after that point.
As well as the physical wiring, you do need to do one small Betaflight setup change, and that is define that UART as having camera control, which I've done here for UART 6. And you need to be on Betaflight 3.3 or above for this to work, and this quad just meets that requirement.
Okay, so you can hopefully see that my little cable here running from the camera into there is there. This one has still got the smart audio, and that one's still got the video signal. I've just cut one of the connectors down so they don't both fit in together side by side there, and that seems fine. So what I'm going to do now is connect up the battery and show you what you can do in fact in UART control for the camera. I'm going to move this out of the way because if it gets too close then everything just complains that it's losing connections all the time and stuff. Right, so we're powered on and it's come on as per normal. So first thing I'm just going to do is turn my OSD screen off so we don't have to look at that. The way to get into the camera menu is, unlike the normal getting into the OSD menu, which is that, you go middle stick and go to the right, and if you then just hit right again, you are in the normal camera menu, and you can use your right stick to go up and down, and your left stick is basically enter. So you can change values with this, and you can go in and out with the right stick there, and if you go left you'll exit all the way out. So yeah, you can change a whole bunch of things in there, and it took me a little while to figure out how to get into the actual OSD screen for the camera. If you hit right once and then you hold up for about 3 seconds, you eventually come into it, and the first thing I'm going to do is turn all this off, because it's not what I want on my screen when I've already got stuff. How's that? That looks better. Now if I turn my OSD back on, you can see what we're doing. Anyway, useful if you're gonna be going in and wanting to change bits and pieces. If you're like used to flying in different conditions, you will probably want to go into here and mess around. It lets me mess around if I want to, you know, go between PAL and NTSC and look at my 16:9 versus 4:3 and that sort of thing, which is quite useful. I don't think it's something I'd use a lot, but I just wanted to show you how you'd set this up and how you'd set it up on this particular camera. So, flight test next. That'll be more exciting. Well, I say flight test next, but I should really get this mounted in place and get the top on just to see how it all goes together first, shouldn't I? So, quick jump cut. Okay, there we are, all finished. You see we got the camera in there, and you will see we're using the adapter to fill in basically the sides here, and that goes in the 2 holes here, so it's nice and tight, not going to move and shake around at all. So yeah, now we are ready to fly. Let's see how the RunCam Phoenix Oscar edition actually performs. So here we are at the field to test, and quite good news, the grass has been cut, so I don't risk losing it in the long grass. The weather is kind of, sun's out, but there's, you know, there's clouds moving around, so pretty good conditions for it, but hopefully a bit in and out and changing. Yeah, let's see how it goes, shall we? Let's get it flying.
So here we go, our first flight on the Phoenix. I'm looking at the colours, I'm checking things out, but actually the first thing I noted was something doesn't feel right here, something feels wrong. And I couldn't quite put my finger on it at first. First it felt like the odd frame was being dropped or something from the camera, but then it's coming through as there's a kind of shake to it. Now there's a little bit of a breeze around. I expect a little bit of the movement on the camera from that breeze, but this is something quite different, and it may not look any different from wind when you look it back on video. When you're flying, you can just feel that there's something not there. There's something very consistent about the shake, irrespective of whether you're going through wind or whatever. And it just wasn't feeling right to me. Something is not right here, and I wasn't happy with it. I upped the power in the VTX for a quick minute flight as well, just to see if that would clear up any of the small amount of noise I've occasionally got going on. Now, as far as the colour reproduction goes, I'm finding it very natural, very good, but I can't get away from this shake. I can't be doing with that. So the question will be, well, is this the problem with your frame? And this is the same frame that I've just taken the Caddx Ratel off to try this camera on. And if you go back and look at the Ratel footage, you'll find it's very smooth and looking very good, and very different from this one in terms of that shakiness. So what to do next?
Hello, back again. It's the next day, and I got the RunCam Phoenix, this time in the Copes 1, which I flew yesterday using a Foxy Arrow, and it was very smooth. So I wanted just to make sure that there was nothing wrong with the previous frame, and see how this does on this frame. It's nice out the same conditions as this, so you can probably see that the trees are blowing around a bit. There's a bit more breeze. It's very hot. That's the big hat's on, and I'm stood in the shade here. But hopefully it's enough to see if we've got a problem with the camera or a problem with the frame. I'm also flying the Foxy Arrow on this frame to see if this frame is the thing that's actually producing wobbles. So if this is smooth and the other one's not smooth, then it's definitely not the frame, it's the camera. But we'll find out.
So off we go again, this time on the Copes, one of my favourite quads from, it's a year old or 2 years. It's still a great quad anyway. But yeah, the same thing's happening. Now, it is a lot windier. I mean, I might be understating it, saying it's a bit breezy. So I'm expecting some wobble from the quads, and I had 3 or 4 quads there with me that day, and I was getting little wobbles from them. But this is on another level of wobble. It's still the same thing as it was, unfortunately. So even though we've moved it over to a known good frame, we're having an issue with it. The other thing you may have noticed is I had a GoPro Session mounted on that frame, because I wanted to know, okay, if we're getting wobbles from this camera, what's it going to be like on an HD camera? My experience with using HD cameras is that I can get very smooth video from the FPV camera. I think this is going to be amazing, and I still get wobbles in the HD camera. It's never the other way around. I never get smoothness from the HD and then wobbles from the FPV camera. So this is what the HD footage looks like, and you can see we're not having those wobbles. We've got a pretty smooth image, and you can see there that in comparison the Phoenix is jumping around all over the place, which is a shame. I think this is telling me it's the Phoenix. Quite what in the Phoenix is wrong is another question. And just as final confirmation, here is the arrow on the Nebula. Again, there's little shakes from the wind, but it doesn't look anything like what the Phoenix looked like on this the day before. It's fairly smooth in comparison.
So before doing that flight, I obviously checked that the lens was good and tight and in there and there was no apparent movement. So after that flight, what I did is came home, removed the camera and took a look to see if there was any movement in there, and you can see the little IR sensor. That looked okay. So then I unscrewed the back to take off the sensor, and again the sensor seems to be in quite tight. There's nowhere it can really go. I do this and nothing happens. And I could also see that when this is screwed in and I give it some wiggle there, there's no movement coming through. But that said, this whole thing feels like a lens or sensor movement. So if you guys are wondering, hey, why are you showing us this camera that's not working as a review? Well, I thought you might be interested to see what happens actually during a review. A review is something that not just happens in a day or a couple of hours. Normally I have things for quite a while and I work through different things and I go and try and fly it as much as possible. And I do things in sort of a linear fashion. So when I'm unboxing it and I haven't flown it and done stuff with it, it's kind of, this is me taking it out the box, this is me looking at it on the bench for the first time, this is me flying it for the first time, and sometimes it's like, well, that didn't work very well, let's go back and try it again. And that's how I do it. Also, I wanted to put the stuff out there about how to use UART camera control, because I think that's quite useful, depending if you want to change your camera a lot. And I thought it might be useful to show what I do in terms of trying to find faults in these things. It's basically a comparison against other known working things, and we eventually come with a conclusion of like, something's not right with this camera. So it doesn't mean it's a rubbish camera. All manufacturers will have a certain failure rate. Normally it's in a couple of percent, and when a product's brand new it's normally higher. That said, it's not a complicated product in terms it's got like 2 parts or 3 parts, like you screw them both to the body. But it really does feel like something's wrong with the sensor or the movement in the lens. And this isn't necessarily a new thing from RunCam. When I first got the RunCam Swift Micro with a 2.3mm lens, that lens was wobbly. Again, it felt tight, but it was producing wobble, and RunCam had to replace the lens. They found there was a problem with that lens. Maybe it's the same thing. That said, I did speak to Oscar Lang about this because I thought he might have a bit of insight into the camera. He was able to tell me that a couple of hundred of these have already shipped and there wasn't any problems. He'd personally tested 4 of them and they're all okay. So I've got no doubt that this is a decent camera if you've got a fully working one. It's just I haven't. And I mean, if you check Oscar's footage out, it's really nice. It looks great. So what I intend to do is show this video and the footage I've got from here to RunCam and try and get a little bit of insight here. Is this something that is obviously wrong? Can you see a problem with a certain component, or is this just a case of, hey, you got a dud and it needs replacing? And of course, as soon as I find that out, I'll update this video and tell you guys. In the meantime, of course, I can't really recommend the RunCam Phoenix, having had a broken one. So for now I'm still sticking to my guns and saying the Cadex Ratel is my favourite FPV camera, and for my money I think it's the best FPV camera out there. Once this is working and better, I'll be able to do a better comparison, but it's unfair to compare like for like, even though like a bit of it's working. This camera was supplied by a review from Banggood, thanks to them, as was this one. So there will be links down below to all the products here, of course, and you can check that out. In the meantime, I hope that review's been helpful. I'll be following it up as soon as possible, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye for now.
Well, you've made it to the end of the video, so thanks once again for watching. If you like what you saw, then please consider subscribing, and if you really like what you saw, then be sure to check out the link to my blog for a variety of ways in which you can help support this channel.